Shalom, Israel, Most High Christ blessed. I'm doing a short video again, just to talk a little bit about tithings. Something is very familiar and very known in Christianity, in religion, in the Sunday churches. So we're gonna go over what tithes, so we can see if what Christianity doing is according to the Bible, or is it not according to the Bible. Okay, it's something that they call tithes in the churches, Sunday churches, that they do every Sunday, 3-4 times, a day. It's 3-4 times that day. So let's see if that's biblical, or is it just something they are doing that's outside of the Bible. Okay, first we're gonna go to Deuteronomy 14. We're gonna start at verse 22. We know tithes was also written in the laws of Moses. So it was one of the laws of Moses. So majority of Christianity claim that we don't live according to the laws of Moses anymore. Is the books of Moses or the laws of Moses is done away with. Christ came to done away with that. It's fulfilled. Blah blah blah. That's a hypocrisy at its best, because if tithes is part of the laws, statutes, and commandments that given by Moses, right? If they claim that it's done away with, then why do they just keep tithes? If it's done away with, it should be done away with. Why would they only keep tithes then? So that kind of shows the hypocrisy of those. And for that matter, we know the majority of Christianity have that doctrine where they say the laws of Moses are done away with. And we're going to do another video on that topic about if the laws of Moses are done away with. Okay, so now we're going to stay in topic as far as tithes. So we're going to read from Deuteronomy 14, verse 22. Thou shalt truly tithe all the increase of thy seed, that the field bringeth forth year by year. Okay, it says we should truly tithe the increase of our seed. What is seed? Seed is the thing you put on the ground to grow. Crops, food, corn, anything that grow from the ground, corn, rice, whatever, apple, whatever you grow off the ground. That's what the seed is. And that's what, to prove that, it says that the field bring forth year by year. So it has something to do with the field. When you put your field. So that's what tithes is. It was never money. It was always food and crops and your flocks. Okay, we're going to read on. Verse 23. And thou shalt eat before the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose to place his name there. You see? It says we shall eat our tithes before the Lord our God. In the place he choose for that feast. Tithes was like a feast. It was every 3 years or something like that for the Levites, which is one of the 12 tribes of Israel who didn't have inheritance with the Most High God, because they were the priests who were keeping order in the whole nation of Israel throughout the whole tribes, all the tribes. So what God would do, since they were the only tribes with no inheritance, God made all the other tribes bring forth things for them, because the Levites didn't have fields, no crops, so the other 11 had to take care of the Levite priests. Okay, so we're going to read on. And thou shalt eat before the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose to place his name there. The tithe of thy corn, of thy wine, of thine oil, and of the firstlings of thy herds and of thy flocks. See, there we go. Those were the tithes. That thou mayest learn to fear the Lord thy God always. Okay? So the tithes was food. as we just read. Now let's read verse 24. And if the way be too long for thee, so that thou art not able to carry it. Now it's talking about when you bringing all the food, all the flocks, all the herds, and it's the where the Lord choose for that feast is too far for you. You can't bring all of those things. Okay, now it's gonna tell you what to do, so that thou art not able to carry it. You can't carry all of those things. Or if the place be too far from thee, okay, which the Lord hath thy God shall choose to set his name there. When the Lord thy God has blessed thee, verse 25, then shalt thou turn it into money, and bind up the money in thy hand. See, right then and there, Christians are like happy there because it says turn it into money. You know, that's where right there the pastor closes the book. You know, and see, you have to turn it into money. Blah blah blah. But they don't read on. You know, that's where they deceive majority of Christians at, so-called Christians, because you know they will stop where they feel like, you know, it's good for them. Okay, we're gonna read on. Verse 25. Then shalt thou turn it into money, and bind up the money in thine hand, and shall go unto the place which the Lord thy God shall choose. Verse 26. And thou shalt bestow that money for whatsoever thy soul lust after, for oxen, or for sheep, or for wine, or for strong drink. You see, after you turn all your flocks, your herds, your you know, all your crops into money, okay, and you're gonna go into the place where the Lord had chosen for the feast day. Then you're gonna restore. That means you're gonna restore the things you sold for the money, because it was too far for you. So you get closer to the city the Lord chose, then you rebuy the things that you sold, because you couldn't bring money to the Levites. So you had to always bring crops, herds, and flocks. So you had to buy back the things that you sold, because the place you were coming from is too far from Jerusalem. So you had to get into Jerusalem and rebuy the things that you sold, you know, to bring to the Levites. Okay? And thou shalt bestow that money for whatsoever thou shalt lust after. For oxen, and you gotta buy back what you sold. You can buy oxen, an ox, or for a sheep, or for wine, or for strong drink, or for whatever your soul desires. Meaning whatever you feel like buying, you know, you can buy to bring to the Levites. And thou shalt eat there. Again, you cannot bring money and eat the money. So you had to bring food, all the stuff, and get it cooked, and it was a feast. Everybody sit down and eat. Eat there before the Lord thy God, and thou shalt rejoice thou in thine household, meaning your whole family come to that feast all together, you know, and you enjoy. Israel would enjoy themselves eating, you know, having a good time in the Lord. Okay. Verse 27. And the Levite that is within thy gates thou shalt not forsake him. You see, all the stuff that you were supposed to bring for that feast, you know, was for the Levites, because they didn't have inheritance. That's why it says you cannot forsake them, because it's for them. Meaning you should not rob them. You should bring him. You should bring it for them. Thou shalt not forsake him, for he have no part, no inheritance with thee. That's what I said before. They didn't have no inheritance in Israel. They didn't have a land, a field to grow their own food. So they didn't have inheritance. So all the other 11 tribes had to take care of them. Okay? Verse 28. And at the end of 3 years, thou shalt bring forth all the tithes of thine increase the same year. You hear? That tithing was done every 3 years. I'm gonna say it again, every 3 years. Why? Because it was something, you know, for the Levites, you know. So every 3 years you got to pack up your stuff and bring for the Levites. Okay? So it wasn't every week. It wasn't every Sunday that you collect tithes or whatever. You whenever you feel, every 2 months, every month, whatever, however Christianity do it. So it has nothing, whatever they do has nothing to do with the Bible. Remember how Christ whipped people out of the temple that was involving money in the temple, selling stuff in the temple. Remember Christ whipped people out of the temple because of that? It was selling and buying, all kinds of stuff going on in the temple with money. Christ came and whipped them and said, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar and to God what belongs to God. Meaning in the house of God, Caesar was who? Was the king. It was the money. The money belonged to him at that time. It's just like when we have money today, George Washington's face on it. So it was Caesar's face on it. That's why he says, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, which was the money. Give to God what belongs to God, which is the word of God. That's what the temple was for. So that's what happened. Nowadays, Christianity and religion, that's why we say it's totally false. It has nothing to do with the Bible. They're doing a doctrine of men. White people created this crap called Christianity religion today. It has nothing to do with the Bible. It has a history of since the 1300s by the Romans, okay, who were pagans. That's why you see a lot of paganism has a lot to do in Christianity. A lot of things they do is paganism. It has nothing to do with the Bible. Okay, they merged that to make it look like it has something to do with God and the Bible. But Christianity and religion is as a whole is paganism. It has nothing to do with what God says. Okay? Okay, let's read verse 29. And the Levite, because he have no part nor inheritance with thee, and the stranger, and the fatherless, and the widow, which are within thy gates, shall come and shall eat and be satisfied, that the Lord thy God may bless thee in all the work of thy hand which thou doest. You see, that's what tithes was for. It was for the Levites, the fatherless, the orphans, the widows who didn't have support, anybody that didn't have support, who needed it, who were in need of it, they would give to them. That's the purpose of tithes. Do you see that in your church when you collect your tithes? Do the pastor gather everybody and find out who needs what and give them money or give them things? No, they keep their money. They buy the biggest houses, the nicest cars. Meanwhile, you, as the people of the church giving all this money, you're catching the bus. You can barely pay your rent. You don't have a job. You don't have no support. But the little bit you have, you bringing it to them, which God never required to do in the first place. Okay? So now I'm going to show you what they use to deceive you, to make you feel guilty to give that money. Your pastor, your Christianity religion is a business. It's a business. It's not the house of God. It has nothing to do with the house of God. It's business to make money. That's what they use it for. Okay? Now let's go to Malachi. And this is what they use to make you feel guilty to bring that money. Okay, I'm sure all of you heard this before from your pastor. Malachi, the last book of the Old Testament. Okay? This is what they use. Malachi chapter 3 verse 8. Will a man rob God? Yet ye have robbed me. But ye say, wherein have we robbed thee? In tithes and in offerings. See that? There we go. They say, can a man rob God of tithes and offerings and blah, 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 and then they make you feel guilty. Then they'll tell you this. Verse 9, ye are cursed with a curse, for ye have robbed me, even this whole nation. You see? They'll tell you cursed because you don't give your tithes, you don't give your money, and blah, 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 in your offering, so you're cursed with a curse. That's just to make you feel guilty, and so you can bring your money to them. Okay, like we said before, and like the Bible says in Deuteronomy 14, verse 22 and down, tithes was not money. It was never money. It will never be money. Okay, now let's read on to prove what it's talking about when it says, ye robbed me in tithes. Okay, we read verse 10. Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse. Notice it says, bring the tithes to the storehouse. What do you do in the storehouse? You store things. You don't store money in a storehouse, okay? You store stuff, goods, food, or whatever. But storehouse has nothing to do with money. It's gonna explain further. Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in mine house. He says that God says, bring your tithes in my storehouse so we can have meat to eat, stuff to eat, food. That's what it's talking about. It's talking about food. And prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to be received. You see, God said when you bring tithes, right, to the storehouse, for the Levites, for the less fortunate people, when you bring your food, your crops, your corn, your whatever you grow from your field, you store it in my house for the Levites and for all the widows. God said, if you do that with all your heart and all your mind cheerfully, you will see if God is not going to open heaven and have, bless you with what? In heaven pour you a blessing that there shall not be room enough for you to receive. What is that talking about? Let's read 11. And I will rebuke the devourer for your sakes. The devourers are what? The animals eating your crops. God said, I will rebuke them, okay? And he shall not destroy the fruit of your ground. You see, he's gonna rebuke the devourers, okay? So that way it doesn't eat the fruit of your ground. What is the fruit of your ground? What do you grow that bring fruit on the ground? Food, okay? So he's saying, if you bring tithes into my storehouse, for the Levites, the food and your crops, I will open heaven and pour you out a blessing on your field, on your field, that the things you grow, and I'm gonna make sure the devourers don't eat your stuff, meaning the animals won't eat your stuff, okay? And then he says, shall you your vine cast her fruit, okay, the fruit of your ground, neither shall your vine cast her fruit before the time in the field, saith the Lord of hosts. You see, he says, the fruit, shall your vine cast her fruit before the time in the field. So you see, that's the blessing God's talking about, meaning he's going to bless your field there where you grow fruit at, where you do, or where you grow anything, corn, rice, whatever. So with that, I hope it was helpful. I hope it praise to the Most High that it will be helpful to who's gonna watch and listen. So until then, I say shalom. Most High in Christ bless.